Welcome back to part 2 of painting petite Prussians. In part 1, I had completed painting up the strips of infantry, and now it's time to put them on bases. The bases I have are these 25mm square MDF bases. They come pre-cut for inserting a magnet, and I've already punched out the center hole and put the magnets, which are sold separately, into them. And since Maurice uses 4 bases per infantry unit, I'm going to separate off 4 of these bases and use these to mount our figures to. Now, to mount the figures, I have to get them off the painting strips I used, so to do that, I'm going to apply a little bit of water to each painting strip. The water then goes in under the base through capillary action and reactivates the PVA glue that I've used to hold the strips down, and just given a little bit of time, these will come free. And in that meantime, I'm going to take that time to get a flag for my command stand ready. I just go online and find an image of a historic flag, put it into PowerPoint or whatever software you want to use, and I copy and paste and print it off and cut it out. From here, it's most easy to apply the flag to the command base before mounting it to the maneuver stand that I'm going to use for the game. Here you can see how easy it is to remove the figures from the strips that I used to paint them on. Just don't use your best hobby knife. You don't need something sharp, you're just using it as a lever to free up the miniatures. Next, we're going to prep the flag for actually gluing onto the command stand. I find these bent tweezers are really handy for creasing the flag where you want the flagpole to go. Bend it over once or twice, get a good crease. Never lines up right the first time, so you wiggle it a little between your fingertips just to get the outside edges of the flag to line up. Now, if you watch really closely here, you'll see me glue this flag on upside down. At this scale, little mistakes or big mistakes like that really don't show up. So you can give yourself some forgiveness. Now we're going to glue it onto the command stand. I use a little bit of glue stick. This is glue stick that starts purple and turns clear as it dries. It helps me see where I've spread the glue. I use a glue stick because if you use something with more moisture in it, like a PVA, then you end up getting the ink in your paper to run and smear, and that it just detracts from the overall appearance of your command stand, so you don't want that. Plus, this is easier to manage and get where you want it to, and you don't have to worry about it running everywhere. Next, you wrap it around the flagpole, wiggle it a little bit to get it all lined up, and then those same bent tweezers come in handy, pinching it together there by the flagpole so it'll stay held on. Now, my camera failed me here, and you don't get to see where I put some wrinkles in the flag to make it look like it's blowing in the wind, but that's what I do so to hide some of the mistakes. Here I'm test fitting the miniatures. I want to make sure that the soldiers go all the way across the base, and here you can see the strip is just a little too narrow for that to happen. So what I end up doing is trimming the bottoms of the bases here to make plenty of room so that I don't have to worry about the bases getting in the way when I glue figures on. But then I go ahead and make single figures out of these strips by clipping them off at the bases. One thing to bear in mind when you're trimming these bases is make sure you support the figure next to the base. You see here I grab it between finger and thumb so that you don't send the figure flying across the room and you have to hunt for it. Here I am making individual figures, all you really need to do is make a little clip on the bottom of the base here. I'm supporting both those figures, and just a little clip and they come apart, and now I've got an individual figure. I'm quite certain there's a way I could do this in the slicer, so that, matter of fact, these models also come with individual soldier variants, but that seems like a lot of work, especially when I have to take them all off individually of the build plate and glue them all individually on the strips. Here I have a pile of individual soldiers to add to those strips. So I'm going to put the first rank on here, and I'm going to use super glue, cyanoacetate. The reason I'm using that is not because I need that much strength in holding the miniatures down, but it allows me to move a little more quickly as I glue them. And you can see here that the strip has a tendency to warp. So by using CA glue, I can put the strip down on the base, hold it just for a little while, and that strip will then be flush to the base and not warped up like if I had used PVA glue. Sorry for the focus here, but I'm trying to work with the camera in between me and the model. Here you can see I'm pressing the strip down so that the warp goes away. Just hold it for a little bit, and then I can bring in the individual soldier and tack him on the end. Tweezers are invaluable here. Line them up. I line up my strips so that they're flush with the front of the base. It gives me a nice benchmark for making all the ranks the same on each of the models. Now, if I had models that were firing with their rifles out, I would make sure that the ends of the rifles were flush with the front of the base. That helps me from breaking off rifles that are being leveled at the enemy. Here I'm going with the second rank. Now, on all of these, I alternate the whole strip with the single strip just to alleviate any fluctuation that may be in gluing them down, but I've since modified my choice in doing that. I found that it's easier to paint just the cuff of the leftmost figure, his left cuff that is, and if I put the whole strip on the left end of the base, just like I did with the front rank, then I will always have a painted cuff on the outside of each rank of miniatures. So you learn lessons as you go through. Now I just paint single cuffs on the end figures, and I don't have to worry about more detail than that. Here's the sink rank all glued in. I make sure that I push them up so that the strips are in contact with the strip in front of it. One thing about having the magnet in already is sometimes it'll pull on your tweezer, and that can be troublesome. Next up is the third rank, just like the second rank, and here I have a completed base. Do this 3 more times for a whole infantry unit. Since making this video, I've painted up 3 more of these infantry units, and have found that I can paint up, just paint up, not base, 1 infantry unit in about 50 minutes. So this technique is about putting out miniatures quickly. Here we're going to add some texture to the bases. I'm going to use Vallejo textured paint, dark earth, and the idea here is to simply put it on so that you really can't see the seam in the bases, the little strips that the figures stand on. It goes on a little heavy here. You can always add a little water to thin it out. You'll see here in a second. You just use a brush to push it between the figures, and it doesn't look as bad as it does right now. Do not use your best brush for this. It tears them up because it's basically paint with sand. push the paint in. Sorry, it's not very centered. Smooth it out. Wipe the front of the base off so that I got a nice clean line there, and I work my way around the base. Again, the idea here is not really worrying about the texture inside the formation, just along the edges. The texture on the inside of the formation between your ranks, that'll be taken up by the next step, so you don't have to worry about that. The back, you go a little more quickly because it's not as delicate work. You can put it on pretty heavy. I leave the back end fairly empty just in case I use the figures for a rule system that would require labels or markers of some sort. You could put the markers right there on the back stand and not have to move the figure and the marker with it. Wrapping it up by the left side of the base. Again, just making sure the seams and those strips get covered up so it actually looks like individual figures standing on the ground. And here we have the entire infantry unit with texture applied. It's looking pretty good as is, but next step we're going to actually plant some grass for it. So what I do is I take some fine green blend from Woodland Scenics. Here's what it looks like. Just a cap full of it. And I just take a pinch between my fingers and sprinkle it down from above, making sure that I get in between the ranks. Now, if you get too much on any one figure, you can go in with a paintbrush and just dust them off. But I rarely see a problem with that. Mostly it just falls off the figure. Biggest problem is getting it to stick to the edges of the base, the corners, the sides. I don't worry about flocking the actual sides of the stand, but the edges around the top is what I'm talking about. Then, once you've got a nice sprinkling of flocking on your bases, you're going to glue it down. I use Woodland Scenics adhesive. Now, this is handy because, like it says there on the bottle, it contains a wetting agent. So if you were to use PVA glue, it would just bubble up and be a drop on top of your flocking. But here you can see how it seeps down in, and I sometimes use the figures as a little pipette to let the glue run down to their feet. You just keep dropping it on until the entire top of the base is saturated, and then all you've got to do is wait for it to dry. Like I said previously, I'm able to do an infantry unit of 4 stands like this in about 50 minutes, and since making this video, I've finished up my Austrian army for Maurice, and perhaps the next videos I'm going to do are setting up a game and walking through learning the rules. If you'd like to see those videos on the game Maurice, make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you liked this video and found it helpful, make sure you hit the like button. Until those videos come out, that's it for the Midwest Grognards, and until next time, remember, go big or go home.